starting point of your learning on day 2. What is step number 2? You identified a problem which is painful in your organization, which is painful to your customer, painful to some of the stakeholders. So that's the problem identification. You might have used either the voice of the customer or the voice of the business, or your cost of poor quality data might have brought the problem to the surface, right? And that's the project identification, problem identification. Now you have a list of problem, hopper of various issues. You can even call it a issue hopper. Since there are so many problems that requires attention, which one is most important? Which one is most important from the customer point of view, from the organization point of view? This is what is called prioritization. So prioritization, you can handle prioritization using 2 important tools. One is Pareto, another one is prioritization matrix. In fact, your prioritization matrix, gives the input for plotting a Pareto. Prioritization matrix gives the input to the Pareto. So that's why we taught you prioritization matrix, because Pareto has got certain limitation. It can consider only few criteria, but always, organization works on several criteria. Priorities differ from product to product. Priorities differ from, organization to organization and domain to domain. So we call them business specific criteria. Nothing but the KPIs which drive the organization, key performance indicator. Those KPIs should be used while prioritizing the projects. Consider the KPIs which has impact on the strategic goals of the organization, right? And also consider KPIs that requires the amount of effort to be put in by the project team so that results can happen on time. And also consider the KPIs which can help you to understand the risk associated in executing a project. So you basically require business specific criteria. Business specific criteria are derived from the organization's strategic goals, right? And strategic goals, well, you can easily understand looking at the business level dashboard or department level dashboard. Then you get an idea what is that your organization is running behind, right? So those KPIs should definitely be part of your prioritization matrix. And then assign weightage, right? There could be 3 or 4 criteria which can represent the impact. So assign weightage, and certain criteria maybe of higher importance. So assign more weightage. We are interested in ordering the project, nothing else, right? We are not going to do anything with the number finally we are getting. We just wanted to know which is most important to us. So we use criteria, and then we compare each project against those criteria, and then we do have the weightages, and finally we arrive on the overall weightage a project has got, right? And whichever project that scores well with respect to the impact it can make in achieving the organization goal, the strategic goal, and the amount of effort required. And generally organization require more result with less effort. Even individuals requires that less effort but more result. So consider projects that require lesser effort. And similarly the last one, the risk. We wanted to run projects that comes with minimum risk or no risk. So as far as the impact is concerned, the impact should be great. As far as the effort required is concerned, that should be less. As far as the risk associated is concerned, that should be less. So where is this happening? Which project is happening in this manner? That project should be prioritized. And this is what you learned in the prioritization matrix. And in my opinion, as a black belt, you can create your own prioritization matrix. Though the templates are shared with you, though hundreds of templates are available in Google, as a black belt, you should be able to create a table, which is nothing but a format or a template, a prioritization matrix that can work very well for your organization. That means your level of understanding on the subject is creation. The highest level of understanding you have, if you have acquired, that means you will create whatever tools required for your organization. You just don't have to depend on the tools that are created by somebody for something else. What is required for solving your problem, you create yourself, right? And I think prioritization metrics, you have understood to the creation level. Then we moved on to a project charter, right? This prioritization metrics was taught to you by Dr. RK and then project charter by Mr. Vinod Shankar. So project charter is basically a 1 to 2 page document, in my opinion. Of course, you can have any number of pages. It's a 1 to 2 page document because the person who is going to approve your project can spend only, minimum time, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So within which you should be able to convince him and get your project approved. So keep it just 1 to 2 pages. And please note your project charter is going to be a living document, right? And it can have as low as just 6 headers, and then you can submit it for the proposal. And those important 6 headers we discussed, those are nothing but business case, the problem statement, the goal statement, the scope statement, timeline, and team member. Make sure you write just 2 or 3 lines in a way that it can make a great impact when the sponsor reads them. Just 2 or 3 lines, but it should quickly convey the information which you wanted to convey. So mathematically speaking, your business case will talk about the Z variable. The business case will talk about the Z variable. The problem statement will talk about the Y variable. X variable will not worry right now because X variable is what is to be identified, what is to be validated, what is to be fixed. We are in the define phase. Let us not really worry about the causes. Let us not really worry about the solution because we are going to identify those causes. That is why we have, we are running a project. So don't worry about the causes. If you are writing something about the causes, it simply means the project what you are trying to do is not a Six Sigma project at all. If the root cause of the problem is already known, why do you require analysis? So make sure in your project charter, you talk only about the Y variable, the pain metric, the Z variable, the business consequences. If the problem is not attended, how the business will suffer. If the problem is solved effectively, what kind of benefits your organization is going to achieve in the short term as well as in the long term. What are the direct benefit? What are the indirect benefit? Right? What are the hard costs? The direct benefits will give you hard money, isn't it? And the indirect benefit will give you the soft money. You call it the hard cost and the soft cost, right? So all those benefits should reflect in the business case. You must briefly describe the problem in the problem statement. If somebody reads your problem statement, he should be able to cry reading your statement, right? You have to narrate it in such a way that the other person reading your problem statement correctly understand the pain experienced by the customer. And then the goal statement, goals should be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bounded, right? And that you need to maintain. And then the scope have to be cleared, right? The project should be scoped properly, in scope and out scope. What is in your scope and what is not in your scope? The training program, what is to be taught to you and what should not be taught to you, we should know very clearly. If we really do not know that, probably the training will never come to an end. It will keep on going and then you will keep on learning. So that's not the purpose. We need to stick to timeline. We are responsible for the result. So the scope have to be understood. That is the reason why we are suggesting you to at least identify the first step in the process and the last step in the process. All the activities that happens from the first step till the last step are in your scope or in the scope of the project team. Anything beyond, right, or before the first step and after the last step, that is definitely not in the scope of the project team. And please make sure you write the in scope and the out scope clearly, visualizing the process. And that is another reason why we want you to create a SIPOC diagram: supplier, input, process, output, and customer. And then the timeline and team member, you can use a Gantt chart and and all those things you can help you to visualize the timeline. When are you going to kickstart the project kickoff, when the define will get over, when the measure will get over, when the analyze will get over, when the improve phase will get over, when the control phase will get over. Suppose if your sponsor is very tough, you want more detail, then give timeline for each and every step. You have 15 steps, isn't it? So you can beautifully plan your project and show it in the form of a Gantt chart, and then you can convince him on the timeline. And once all the phases, all the steps are the activities are made crystal clear, and find out who is really competent in performing each and every activity. Figure out the people, the belt holders in your organization. That's why it's very important you nominate your friends and colleagues to your upcoming program. Thereby, when you actually try to assign resources, assign people in your project, your job becomes a cakewalk, right? You can assign some green belts, you can assign some yellow belts, and definitely they can do the job for you. And then definitely, your name will be projected very highly, right? And that's how you finalize on the team member. Then if the project charter is fully ready, and don't forget to add some visuals, because visuals makes great impact. One picture is better than 1,000 words. So try to add some visual, some trend of the problem, right? And a bar chart or a kind of trend chart, and show something, some visual clues. And you can add that it is worth adding a picture, so that your chance of getting your project approved will definitely increase. And then make sure your project is vetted by finance controller, because you write several financial terms. You say that the project will give a result of saving of 85 lakhs every single quarter, right? That means near about 3.4 crores annual saving. So somebody has to validate it. So finance controller is the right person. Make sure you give a provision for the finance controller to verify and then approve your project charter. Then as a project leader, the black belt can sign, and then it can be put up for approval by the project sponsor, right? And there is always a confusion between sponsor and the champion. And champion is a person who can liaison between the sponsor and the project team. It is the project sponsor who has the authority to approve your project, who has the authority to provide permission for resources. And then the resources will come to you through champion, right? So that's how a project can be approved, and then your project comes to life. And see here, we are not talking about the causes in the project charter. Why at the time of defined phase, we are not really concerned about the causes, because we know it is the root cause which is to be identified, which is to be validated, which is to be fixed as a part of our project. That we will be doing in the measure, analyze, and improve phase, but definitely not in the define phase, right? And then there are several examples of a project, right? And particularly your project title and the problem statement, will be more close to each other. And make sure you write the problem statement properly, and limiting to describing only the Y variable. Don't bring the X variable or don't bring the Z variable while writing the statement for the problem statement or pain statement. So few examples, like reducing the average cash balance in ATMs. Banks, they run, they keep several ATMs, hundreds of ATMs, and then put a lot of money. If nobody withdraws the money, what are you doing? You are actually simply blocking the money in ATMs. That actually becomes an inventory. Underutilized or unutilized resources are nothing but inventory. So can you think of reducing the unutilized money that simply lies in the ATM? That is a good problem, but good problem statement. So this average cash balance that remain unutilized in ATM can be understood, can be reduced, and so the recovered money can be utilized for other business operations, right? One example. And similarly, the reducing the errors. If it is a manufacturing, then the defectives, or if it is a service organization, any kind of failure. In the case of a bank, and even the account opening errors, account closing errors, the DD when you are issuing, that comes with error, and all those things can be reduced. And eliminate, and similarly trying to reduce or even eliminate the transaction failures, right? And reducing the customer compliance, reducing the call handling time if you are associated with the call center, and reducing the call dropouts and reducing the number of bugs, that generally comes out in the first run from the people who are actually doing the coding and programming. So these are all, some metrics that helps you to quantify the problem and make sure that metric, the CTQ, participate in your problem statement. And then your Z variable is business case, business consequence. Make sure you talk about both the hard cost as well as the soft cost. You talk about the direct benefit as well as the indirect benefit, direct loss as well as the indirect loss, right? Cost of poor quality, revenue, profit, these are all, direct benefit, direct cost. However, brand image, loss of reputation, opportunity loss, and all those things are, indirect, right? And then the supply, we moved on to understand SIPOC, which is an acronym standing for supplier, input, process, output, and customer. Well, imagine a project where you are trying to reduce the turnaround time in a particular process. Let's say the process is, issuing a kind of demand draft. Now you need to create a SIPOC. You need to create a SIPOC for the demand draft issue process. How it is currently happening. What are the important steps that are there while issuing a demand draft, right? And then later on, you can improvise your SIPOC to a process flowchart. Later on, you can improvise your process flowchart into a value stream map, right? Depending on the criticality and the requirement, you can gradually improvise, right? But at the SIPOC level, let me talk about the very old way of process way of issuing the demand drafts in bank. I do not know how currently it works because there were a lot of improvement. None of us actually go to the bank nowadays. But earlier, I remember, we generally go to the bank, we fill up a challan. That's the first step. Then we stand in the queue. That's the second step. Then we deposit the cash. That's the third step. Then the DD is prepared in the bank. Then that is issued to the applicant. So how many stages? 5 stages. Just to show 5 to 8 stages of the process or 5 to 8 steps of the process which you really wanted to improve. Now for each and every stage or every activity, who is the customer you need to identify. For example, when you are filling up the challan, can somebody now tell me who is going to be the customer for the filled challan? Who is going to receive it? And now I need a response. So I just filled the challan, right? Now for whom I am actually preparing the challan?
Teller, sir.
Very good. So this understanding is now teller is the customer. We always think that bank means, the account holders are the customer. Now teller becomes the customer. Your perspective should change, right? The customer exists everywhere. Now the teller is an internal customer. The applicant is an external customer. Anything wrong, the teller can adjust, but your external customer cannot adjust. Anybody who can make the issue a big one, then he should be treated an external customer. People or any customer who can tolerate and then ready to discuss on the problem, then he should be treated as internal customer. So you must have a clear understanding on the difference between internal customer and external customer. The person within your department sometimes may make the issue be very big. Though he is part of your organization, then you should be able to consider him as an external customer. Never allow a mistake, to be visible to such external people, right? And that's where the differentiation comes. And then you are standing in the queue. When you are standing in the queue, then you have to follow the queue discipline and all those things. Now the fellow applicant or the customers, you need to understand, isn't it, their concern. So don't jump to the first place and rather follow and all those things. Then you actually again deposit the cash. When you are depositing the cash, and again, it is the teller who is going to receive the cash. And then DD preparation, who is going to prepare the DD? Maybe some staff in the bank or maybe the assistant manager. And then sometimes manager also puts the sign. So these people are involved. And then finally, the DD is issued, the prepared DD is issued to you. Now final customer, finally prepared DD comes to you. Now what are your expectations? The DD should be free from error. The beneficiary name should reflect correctly. The amount should reflect correctly. And the DD should be acceptable condition. So every stage there are customers. For the first stage, we understood it was the cashier who was considered the customer, and who was the supplier then now? Cashier wants the filled challan. Now, who is the supplier? You are the supplier. Because you are preparing the challan, you are going to give. And for you, when you are entering the bank, maybe even sometimes the security fellow will hold the challans in some place, and then he can give you. So he also becomes part of the supplier. Make sure these two suppliers, supply quality input, because that input is used in your process so that a filled challan can reach the teller effectively. So this is how the SIPOC makes the project team understand the very important stages in the process. And this diagram will also give a clue to the sponsor that the project team is really attacking the process which is responsible for the failure. Right? The process which is responsible, which is actually creating the consequences in the business. So he will understand that the competency of the project team in solving a problem. All right. So that's it is. And then you had a session, the third session, again, it was offered by Dr. RK on financial metrics, where you talked about several metrics, but the important ones which can impress your sponsor are the revenue, the profit, the return on investment, the net present value, and the break-even point. And make sure you use all these terms when you are writing a project, right? And then there was another session offered by Vinod Shankar on Kano model, where you understand, where you understood that customer requirements has to be prioritized and then offered to the customer, right? So Kano model works on CTQs, not on VOCs. VOC, you do a survey, then all the input will be, in the form of VOC. VOC is voice of customer, but what is required is you must convert the voice of the customer into measurable metrics, which are now called CTQs. Now you have hundreds of CTQs. You have thousands of CTQs. Now what will you do? You wanted to develop a product, or you wanted to understand the customer's requirement. Now you should now be able to prioritize them. See, prioritization in different formats, it happens in all the tools. So Kano model is also a prioritization tool, but it helps you to prioritize the customer's requirement, right? But it uses the CTQs and not the VOCs. All right. And then there are different characteristics of a product according to Kano model. One is must be, the other one is performance, the other one is delight, and the fourth one is indifferent, the fifth one is reverse, right? So must be, for example, in our program, Black Belt program, the certificates or award issued to each and every participant. What do you think? Issuing a certificate is a delighter, or issuing a certificate is a performance feature, or issuing a certificate is a must be feature, or issuing a certificate is indifferent or reverse? Can one of you comment? What do you think?
The must be.
It's must be, right? If we say that we give only knowledge and no certificate, and none of you could have joined the program. We could have lost the opportunity to train all of you. So this must be understood, right? So a particular characteristics in your product, whether it is a must be or a performance or a delight or a indifferent or a reverse, you need to understand. Now, coming to the cost of the training program. Tell me, cost of the training program, is it a must be, or is it a performance, or is it a delighter, or is it an indifferent feature, or is it considered a reverse feature? Come on.
It's a performance metric, sir.
Fantastic. Performance feature. It is the cost which actually you used to compare one service provider with another service provider. You might have compared our cost with the competitors. Besides comparing many other things, you also included cost as the one of the comparison factor. Any factor which you use or any feature which you use to compare a product or a service against the other competitor, then that feature is definitely performance feature, right? And whoever is performing better, the buying decision will go in their favor. And that's why all of you are here, right? And number 3, Dr. RK is giving you several templates, right? If you he is saying that if you want anything new, you can demand. He is, willing to prepare and then share it. What do you think that feature has?
Delight.
Yes?
It's a delight, sir.
Yeah, it's a delighter, because we have not committed that we will give these on all those things, but you are still getting it. And then similarly, the Tuesday doubt classes, of course, Not most of you use it, but still I consider that as a delight feature. And then let me say, let us say, no, we have promised that your certificate will be couriered. We can send the certificate by ordinary government post, or we can send it by courier. Are you really concerned about whether we will be sending it through the government postal service or through a private courier service? Are you really concerned about it? And can you also tell me what kind of feature it is? You get my question? I can send the certification through government postal department, through professional courier, or through Blue Dot, or still much better service provider. So there is a feature by which certificates are dispatched to your doorstep. What is this feature? Is it a must be, or is it a performance, or is it a delighter? What is it? Do you all get my question? We are sending the certificate doorstep. Maybe certificates are required. You already told me that is must be. But how do I send the certificate? It is courier or postal department. Now this feature, is it again a must be? Do you expect it only by courier, or are you okay with it?
It should be indifferent, I think, sir, because anyway we will be reaching within 1 or 2 different days difference only.
Very good. So it is indifferent, right? Whether we use postal department or we use courier. But now when the customer sees it as indifferent, now we are at liberty to choose whichever best suits the business requirement. Because customer sees it as indifferent. All that required is certificate should reach you safely. Whether it is done by a government agency or by a private agency, it is an indifferent feature, right? Good. And finally, let us say we give you one assignment every single day. What do you think? If we give an assignment so that we can prepare you very well on the subject, we can guide you on the implementation challenges. So we are giving you mini case studies and mini assignments and some examinations every single day. Now, what do you think? Is that a good feature, or it's a must be, or a performance, or a delight feature, or an indifferent feature, or is it going to be a reverse feature?
It will be a reversal. Because they because everybody will be engaged in their work. If daily there is some activities given, might not be followed by all.
Very good. That is why there are no activities for you, right? So no activities except the one single quiz, that too to help you with the examination, right? Earlier we used to give many assignments, and then we slowly realized that it is actually doing the reverse work, and then spoils our the people preferring our course. So you need to handle your product feature properly by understanding how the customer sees it. Whether the customer sees it as a must be, then you must do it at any cost. If the customer sees it as a performance, then you must do it in a way that you are at least better than the competitors, right? And if the customer sees it as a delight, then make sure you use it only after doing well in the must be and the must be and the performance. Otherwise, it will be like wearing a tie without wearing a shirt, right? You should never do that mistake, and make sure you do well in the must be, do well in the performance, then move on to the delight. And then indifferent and reverse, you can handle it. And then we moved on to another last session, which was actually dealt by me, the quality function deployment. Again, quality function deployment is a process by which you convert the customer requirement into appropriate technical specification, right? The customer requirements are converted into organization requirement. What is organization? The research development, the research department, the product development department, and then you have marketing department, you have sales department, and you have purchase department. Everybody is involved. So all of them are involved in the development of the product, and each and everyone has certain expectation from the product. For example, if you are manufacturing a product, what is the role of a purchase manager? If you want to manufacture a product, then the raw material should be easily available. Otherwise, he can't purchase. So all the requirements have to be understood, and then all the customer requirements should be converted into company requirement. And finally, the company requirement will now be given the shape of technical specification. The whole process is called quality function deployment. If you understand this very well and execute this very well, then making your product succeed in the market will be very, very easy, right? And sometimes the hierarchy of tables are called as house of quality, because when you actually assemble all the hierarchy table, see again, it is nothing but a prioritization tool. It will look like a house. So we call it house of quality. On the left side is the prioritized VOC, nothing but what are your customer requirement. That is, those are nothing but prioritized VOC. And how are you fulfill your customer requirement? Those are CTQs, prioritized CTQs. So the vertically on the left side, you will have the prioritized VOC. Horizontally on the top, you will have prioritized CTQ. And these two will be connected, with the relationship between the two will be explained in the relationship matrix. We talked about all those things. I hope all of you are able to recall the diagram. And then on top of the prioritized CTQ, we had a roof. That roof is called correlation matrix. Then on the extreme right side of your house, you had another vertical table, which is called quality planning table. The customer perceived quality. What your customer thinks about your product as on date. How do you know? Through appropriate survey. And then in the bottom, you have a design planning table. What is design planning table? The optimized values of the specification will evolve out of the design planning table, right? So how do you handle this tool QFD? Will tell you how good your product is going to be to your customer. And this is what, in essence, we learned several things in the under the define phase. So a well-defined problem is half done. In my opinion, it is 90% done. As far as the Six Sigma project is concerned, define phase is the toughest phase. Many people struggle to make the project a successful one simply because they don't even understand the problem which they want to solve. They really don't know what is the process needs to be improved. They really do not know the particular characteristic that needs to be measured. They simply measure whatever is easy for them. You should not measure which is easy. You should measure which is important, right? So all these things will happen properly if the define phase is executed effectively. And having defined, having understood the problem, having identified the process, having visualized the process, having assigned the roles, responsibility, you are really good to proceed with the next phase. What is next phase? The measure phase, right? The first step that leads to control and improvement is measure.